Back in the summer of 2016, after a disastrous theatrical run for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition was released with an additional 30 minutes of cut-out story from Warner Brothers that had screwed the pooch completely, and the movie went on to spend 5 weeks at the #1 spot for home video sales during that summer. People loved it, and they were absolutely positively hoping that when it came time for Zack Snyder to bring Justice League to the big screen in a little over a year and a half, that it would be as amazing as the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman. The tone was set, the characters were introduced, and the time was now. And unfortunately, that did not happen. And there are a litany of reasons as to why, most of which, if you're watching this video, you know them already, so it's no real point to go back over them. All we do know is that the movie was the highest grossing box office bomb of all time. But with that revelation, we and all the other information that we knew coming out of this movie, the fan movement for Release the Snyder Cut started, and this thing has not let up in over 2 years. And it is amazing that the fans are still pushing, the fans are still fighting, and every time it pops up, I do my best to talk about it because it is something that I desperately want to see too. In Zack Snyder, I trust. I love Man of Steel. I love BVS, and I wanted to see his vision of this trilogy completed, or at least the setup for what could have been part 1 and part 2. And again, everything we know about that, what his original vision was fantastic. And so the other day, we got this fantastic image. We got to see that on Twitter in the United States, 442,000 tweets at the time of taking this image, which, trust me, skyrocketed well past that. Release the Snyder Cut was trending, and so did Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot and a lot of other people that got on board. I mean, Zack Snyder got on board, saying here, this is a Hollywood Reporter article saying Zack Snyder, Ben Affleck, and Gal Gadot call for the release of the fabled Snyder Cut. They wanted to make their voices heard, and it was really fascinating that this is where we found ourselves. Even Grace Randolph, whether or not you believe her or not, she had come out and she said, just a heads up, if you support the Snyder Cut or if you thought about supporting it, I'm hearing today is the day to tweet about it like a lot. Things are happening in Hollywood, fingers crossed, don't give up. And of course, that really did catch a lot of people's attention, mine included. And so today, I was surprised when I was approached by my buddy Mikey Sutton here, who is kind of making a name for himself as this massive scoopster. If you know anything about the Mikey Sutton scoops, they're talked about. People look at these. Now, I want to make it abundantly clear that Mikey, he came to me with this information, but I just want to remind everybody, this is in fact a rumor. This is a rumor. It's an absolute rumor, and that is where we have to take it. But what he has told me about the Snyder Cut of Justice League is something I already pretty much figured out in my own free time, but he just confirmed it for me. So apparently, what's happening right now is Warner Brothers and HBO are currently in discussions to bring the Snyder Cut to HBO MAX. Now, we know HBO Max comes out here pretty soon, and it kind of feels like, coming off of the success of Joker, at least this is what Mikey told me, is that Warner's is wanting to take the fight to Disney, which means that they're going to want to release the Snyder Cut on HBO Max up against a Disney Marvel movie. And what's the next movie coming out? That is Black Widow, and that's opening up in May. And we know that. So anyway, what exactly is in this particular cut? I didn't get a lot of information. All I know is that it exists. We know this too because Snyder likes to tease this stuff on Vero, giving us some shots of Henry, giving us another unfinished shot of Henry. This, I believe, is more from I believe is probably from Batman v Superman, but it could be from Justice League. I don't know, but it's still a good looking image. He's been teasing a lot of it, and even Henry Cavill today came out and said that he hasn't given up playing Superman, but he admits that Justice League just didn't work, throwing more fuel on that fire so people know that something is happening, that Cavill isn't done. And that is great because I love him as Superman. But what we do know is that Jason Momoa says that he has in fact seen the Snyder Cut. And I did get a little information about that. But first, this is what he says. He says, I've seen it. I've seen the Snyder Cut. He goes on to say, oh, you don't think Zack is capable of finishing it. I think the public needs to see it. I'm obviously indebted to Warner's and DC, and I don't know how they feel about it, but as a fan, I am very happy that I got to see it. And what I was told by Mikey was that what he saw was an unfinished cut of the film. What we all basically assume is the movie, right? They didn't get all the visual effects done. They just got the assembly cut or the work print cut or something that was what Snyder originally had cut together when they finished the movie before going into assessing the reshoots. And that is what Momoa wants people to see. And if you've noticed any of the behind the scenes stuff, you probably want to see it too. And not only that, Damon Lindelof chimed in on this the other day saying, I'm not saying I have seen it, but if I had, I would unequivocally support the powers that be to hashtag release the Snyder Cut. When the guy who's running the Watchmen show, who ultimately took over that project from Zack Snyder, who was working on it back in 2015, he comes out and he says, yeah, I've seen the Snyder Cut, man, and I unequivocally support this movie coming out. It really does show you that there is something happening. And I know I've been talking about this a lot, but what I also wanted to point out here was that when they started talking about the release of HBO Max, we got a whole bunch of DC related content that was announced for the service. And it really does put DC Universe in check, right? Like, if you want my honest opinion, I think dropping the Snyder Cut on DC Universe would do well to warrant and bolster subscriptions. But I do feel that ultimately DC Universe is going to be folded into HBO Max because it just seems to make the most amount of sense. Look, the Snyder Cut is a fabled beast, right? But many of us out there who support this, we really want it. We really want it. And we're tired of being teased. We're tired of screaming at Warner Brothers and saying, no, just show us the Snyder Cut. Just put it together. We will give you money. You did this before with the Ultimate Cut. Yeah, it was already completed, but still there was a lot of money to be earned. They made over $50 million in home video sales from the Ultimate Cut on both Blu-ray and DVD. They made a lot of money. They could do it again here. And that's just the unfortunate aspect of it. But I do think that it is going to be on HBO Max. I agree with Mikey on that one. And here's what we know. It launches in May. Now, when I had mentioned going up against Marvel, right, kind of taking the fight back to Marvel, because, again, Joker is going to give Warner's a lot of cojones when taking on Marvel, given the fact that it hit $1 billion on a $65 million budget. However, when you look at this idea here about them going up against Black Widow, they could release this the first week of May, the first weekend of May, and give us this movie. And I think they will, but I think they're going to hold off on the release date of it right away. But I do think they are going to announce it at the Comic-Con experience in Brazil. And I talked about this yesterday because it's the next big event. It's next month. It's in Brazil. Birds of Prey is going to be there showing off a new trailer. You're going to see the Wonder Woman 1984 trailer for the first time. There's a lot going on, and I'm pretty certain that would be the great time to showcase the Snyder Cut, at least give a trailer or some kind of announcement saying that it's coming to HBO Max, and it would definitely bolster subscriptions. Because at the end of the day, fans have been asking, fans have been waiting, and I think they're ready for it. Look, if you've got a 2-year protest by fans, if you've got the director, the actors, and many people out there talking about this movie, wanting to see this cut, they are going to do something with it. It makes no sense to have it all of a sudden bubble up now with the support that it's gotten from people across the industry. This is a fascinating thing. It goes to show you how badly Warner Brothers handled what should have been a movie that would rival the Avengers. You have the Holy Trinity and then just the Justice League in general taking on Darkseid. This should have been a Thanos level event, but it didn't because of people like Kevin Tushihara who wanted a 2-hour hard cut and people who didn't believe in Zack Snyder's original vision and didn't give him the time to finish it. Despite what any of you or many of you might think about Zack Snyder, this was still his vision, and his loyal fans have wanted to see it come to fruition for 2 whole years. And if Mikey Sutton is right, if he's giving me the right information here, then we are going to see it in just about 6 months, which feels like just enough time for Warner's to swoop in and finish up the visuals if they're going to put any money to it. At this point, look, I'd love for them to do that. I'm not going to hold my breath on that. If they just show us like the work print or the assembly cut, we get a broad idea of what Snyder was going for, I would be happy. If I could get the complete trilogy, get the complete vision, even if it's not perfect, I can still use my imagination to compile the rest of it together. And that's what I'd like to see at the bare minimum. But it feels like something big is going to be announced. And trust me, when it is, I'm going to be talking about it. But until then, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. I will talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you so much. Peace out. This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo.